Okay, everybody, so we're going to get started. Welcome to today's webinar, How to Avoid the 3 Biggest Mistakes You'll Make in 2013. For those who don't know me, my name is Julian Hall. I am regarded as a serial entrepreneur, which to my mother means I don't have a real job. But to me, it means that I'm able to do what I love, and that is work with entrepreneurs at all levels. My background is in investment banking, and in 2006, started a digital marketing agency with some colleagues in the City of London. And that really began our entrepreneurial journey. A few years later, I published a best-selling book called The 10 Secrets of Social Media Marketing. And then a few years after that, another best-selling book, Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur, 100 Ways to Up Your Game. And I've been quite fortunate in that I've been able to work with lots of entrepreneurs, successful and unsuccessful, and to really get under the skin of what makes really successful business owners and entrepreneurs tick. So what I'd like to do today is to go through what I think are the 3 biggest mistakes entrepreneurs and small businesses are likely to make this year. So let's get into it. One of the key failings, I believe, for lots of small businesses and entrepreneurs is a lack of focus. And I think it is what I regard as the entrepreneurial curse. So entrepreneurs wake up every day with the most brilliant ideas, game changers, stuff that will change the world potentially. But the issue is that unless they are able to focus on one or a handful of those ideas over time, then none of them will ever come to fruition. And it's something that I see all the time happening with really talented entrepreneurs, people who are able to see the pain points that people are suffering in the world. They're able to see the inefficiencies of products and services and make them better, faster, more cost-effective, more productive, whatever it might be. But the issue is that it is important for them to focus, really laser focus on getting that particular job done, that particular business off the ground, that particular entrepreneurial venture to become a success. Otherwise, all that happens is that idea ends up on the entrepreneurial scrap heap. Essentially, no one really benefits. So in order to stay focused, entrepreneurs like to watch or read motivational content, which is great. But at some time, I say that entrepreneurs need to stop reading motivational books and show them how motivation looks. And what I mean by that is to kind of give you my perspective on this. And around 2000, early 2000s, I probably read as many entrepreneurial and motivational books as anybody else. But I got to the point after a couple of years, having read tons of books and listened to lots of audio books, time after time, spent hours doing this stuff, I realized that a lot of the messages, a lot of the ideas, a lot of the principles were quite similar. There were some very, very similar threads running through a lot of what these motivational books were teaching. And it dawned on me that I was probably spending more time reading these motivational books than actually implementing my business ideas. And I decided to put down the books and to focus on actually doing the do as opposed to reading time after time some of the stuff that was pretty much the same. And that's kind of what I've done ever since. I think it's great to have a reminder and kind of memory joggers and, great quotes that can keep us motivated from time to time. But what you will find as entrepreneurs is that if you focus on actually actioning your ideas, that will become motivational in itself. You will not need external motivating factors because you will be able to motivate yourself based on the success and the goals that you'll be scoring within your entrepreneurial journey. As part of focus and some of the aspects that cause us to lose focus are wrapped up in our ego. on my website, entrepreneursayings.com, one of the sayings is, the ego is the enemy within. For it to survive, it can never be wrong. So it fights to limit the extent of your ambition. Now, the ego is the most difficult aspect of the mind to control. Only when the ego is under control, then your mind can really be utilized constructively for your personal growth and for the growth of your business. Now, we think generally that the ego extends our abilities, and it does in some cases, and essentially we think that our ego makes us believe that we're more than we really are. But it also limits our abilities, or limits how far our mind thinks our abilities can go, because it doesn't want to be proven wrong. So the next time you set a goal for yourself, whether that's a goal in your business, think about whether or not your ego is limiting how far your potential can reach. And I see this all the time in entrepreneurs when they talk about how much revenue they want to generate, how much profit, how quickly they can start their business, how easily they can overcome some of their challenges. You see a lot of self-limiting dialogue in their conversation, and a lot of that is because the ego wants to protect itself from being wrong. Now, I guess the best way to keep the ego in check is by working outside of your comfort zone. This is what I strongly believe, that in working outside of your comfort zone, this will allow you to have a more grounded perspective outside of your usual reality. So inside of your usual reality, you're quite comfortable with the things that you're good at. And generally speaking, you can become quite egotistical about it because you're within, a comfortable space. When you move outside of your comfort zone, you're now not sure about your abilities. You're now not sure about how well you can do, how fast you can run, how much revenue you can turn over, how well you can market your product or service. And it allows you, it's quite humbling. That, as an exercise, it's quite humbling. But if you have the passion and the drive, then that passion and that drive will enable you to keep going outside of your comfort zone. And I think that in doing so, again, it grounds your perspective and it causes you to really be more successful in that. And it's something I speak about all the time, then, in order to be successful, I think you need to live outside of your comfort zone as much as possible, because this keeps the ego under control. And it essentially means that you're able to grow as your business grows, and not just as your business grows, but as the opportunities around your business grows, you're able to grow to meet them, which again, I think is extremely important. Now, one of the things that the lack of focus prevents us from doing is to go the extra mile. And so this is something that entrepreneurs talk about all the time, going the extra mile. But in order to go the extra mile, first, I believe we need to just simply take the extra step. Going the extra mile conjures up images of distance, and the distance of a mile being a long way. So psychologically, a lot of us aren't able to go the extra mile because we think it's too far. But the suggestion here is, as long as you take the extra step and then take another extra step, at some point you will have gone the extra mile. But the question is, why don't we do this? Why don't we go the extra mile? And some of us don't even go the extra step. And we're looking at things like procrastination, fear, or the task at hand being too big. Studies have shown that no matter how big the task is, that by making a start, psychologically, it removes this overwhelming feeling of, whoa, this task is too big. And it actually enables you to keep going, to actually manage this task, because you realize that once you've accomplished even just 1% of the task, your mind then realizes this is actually doable, it's actually within something that I can control. But taking that first step is often the biggest challenge. And a lot of entrepreneurs are perfectionists. So they never launch their product or service, or they never really go to market because they want it to be perfect. And that perfectionism leads to procrastination, and that procrastination essentially leads to paralysis, and we're shut down by the fear of actually failing, essentially. And this vicious cycle, one thing leads to another. But I think we need to try and understand how we can disrupt this cycle. And I think if we look at perfection as an example, it's impossible to be perfect. And I think we all know this. But I think probably what's quite helpful in this presentation today is if you look at any of the technology that's come out in the last few decades, none of it has been perfect. In fact, a lot of it has been far from perfect. If anybody is a user of Windows PC, you'll all know that Windows is far from perfect, but it's the biggest operating system on the planet. If anybody bought the first iPhone back in the early 2000s, then again, you'll know that the first iPhone was quite obviously an unfinished product, but Apple launched it anyway. The former mayor of New York, Mayor Bloomberg, his saying was, "Do not get it right, get it going." And I think that people don't expect perfection. They do expect you to do what you say on the tin. And that doesn't require you to be, or your product or your service to be perfect. It just requires you to do one thing, at the very least, very, very well. So moving on. The next thing that I believe prevents or is a consequence of focus or lack of focus is the fact that a lot of entrepreneurs do not start it like they mean to make it. You know, it's almost as if there are too many half-baked attempts at starting a business. None of it's done with excellence. None of it's done with a real drive or a real passion. And again, I believe it's the reason why a number of, and in fact the vast majority, 95% plus of businesses fail within the first few years, because they don't start it like they mean to make it. But what do I mean by that? I mean that they do not create the necessary impact to make a difference in their niche, in their sector, and to their potential customers or clients. But in order to create impact, you've got to clearly understand exactly what you need to do next. Not what your end goal needs to be, but what are the 3 or 4 things that you need to do in your business or to start up your business this week. And not many entrepreneurs can answer that question. So for yourself, if you think about the business that you're running or the business that you're trying to set up, what are the 3 things that you need to accomplish this week that are top priority? There are going to be lots of priorities in your business. There might be 100 priorities in your business. But what are going to be the top 3 that you need to address this week to help you get to your overall goal? Entrepreneurs are quite goal-focused, and being goal-focused is fine, but I believe that it's more important to focus on each step and making sure that each step you create as much impact as possible. Because in doing so, you might think that in order for you to reach your goal, there might be 100 steps to take. But if you create each step with as much impact as possible, you might reduce that by half, by 3/4. And I know this because when I published my second book, Entrepreneur to Ultrapreneur, 100 Ways to Up Your Game, in July last year, my goal was for the book to become a bestseller. But I didn't know how long it was going to take. I wasn't sure if I'd had to beat people over the head with the book for months before it became a bestseller. I had no idea how long this process was going to take. It was something that was outside of my control. But what I did do was I focused my efforts prior to the book being launched on July 26th. And as a result, our book hit the bestsellers list on the first day because I started it like I meant to make it. I had very serious intentions around hitting the bestsellers list. So I did a number of things prior to the book launching, the book being published to the general public. I did a number of things which created the impact that I needed. So instead of me going through weeks and months of marketing this book, I managed to do that on the first day. So if you create the impact you need, then essentially what I'm saying is your goal or the time it will take for you to reach your goal can be shortened quite dramatically. Now, the second biggest mistake, so the first biggest mistake that I think entrepreneurs will make in 2013 is not having focus. The second biggest mistake that I think entrepreneurs will make this year is to not focus on their customers, not focus on their clients. And I think that it is important for us to realize that in today's markets, customers and consumers have changed. So there's even a new term for this. It's called a prosumer, who is described as a progressive consumer. And this term emerged around 2008, during the recession and identifies a modern consumer who has changed their approach to the traditional methods and habits of purchasing products. So a prosumer is somebody who's researching a product's value, performance, and price through online, through the social networks, and consumer product reviews and Amazon before they make a final purchasing decision. And the reason why they're able to do this is because there are lots of people out there who are offering a ton of solutions to fit their needs. And what they will be aggressively looking for is the highest quality at the lowest price. And it's important that you put yourself in the shoes of your customers and your clients to really respond to some of the things that they'll be looking for in your business. So as part of that, it's important, I believe, to listen to your customers before they listen to your competition. Now, quite an interesting story. About 3 or 4 months ago, I wanted to change my broadband service provider. And it was because I looked at my bill one day and I thought, my goodness, why am I paying so much money, right? And so I decided to call them up and I tried to negotiate a better rate, but they pretty much weren't budging. So I decided to go out into the market and have a look and see what other providers were offering. A competitor of theirs had a 6-month free trial. Great. And I thought, this one's a winner here. But what really tipped me over the edge was my current broadband supplier at peak time, so pretty much at 6 o'clock on the dot, would slow down my broadband. They would cap the bandwidth on my broadband. And I rang up to complain about this, and they said that because the majority of people in the country started accessing broadband at that time, they have to share the bandwidth with everybody. So they made it sound as if it was something that they had to do. But nevertheless, I wasn't a very happy bunny. Now, their competitor, in their advertising, in their national advertising, made a point of saying that they will not slow down the bandwidth on their broadband at peak times. Now, I looked at that and I thought that was really quite interesting because at the time, I thought I was the only person who had that issue or who had a bugbear because of that issue. I was the only person that had noticed in the whole of the country, right, that my broadband had slowed down. And I thought, well, Julian, you're just, an issue that I've got a huge problem with. I'm sure everyone else is fine. But the fact is, there must have been a mass of people who had, on forums online, publicly, whatever, demonstrated their satisfaction with this broadband provider in tapping their bandwidth. And the competitor listened to their customers and responded within their national advertising. Needless to say, I moved over to the competitor and my broadband hasn't been capped at peak times. And the funny thing is that my previous provider are now, a couple of months later, are now offering 6 months free and are now not capping their broadband. But it's too late because I've now left and probably tens of thousands, potentially millions of their customers have left them and got over to their competitors. So it's a classic example of, not listening to your customers. And I think people generally think, okay, customers don't listen to you, they might complain, but they're not going to leave. But what's happening is that in such a competitive marketplace that we have across many industries, your competition is going to be listening to your customers and responding directly to what their wants and needs are. Now, what I'm saying to you as a small business or a budding entrepreneur is for you to listen to what customers are griping about. What are their pains? What are the things that they don't like about existing products and services, and respond directly to those? Because if there are a handful of people who have a particular problem, chances are, if you do enough research to find out if it's a big enough problem that exists within a niche that you can respond to, then there is clearly a massive opportunity in providing a solution to that problem. Listening to your customers before listening to your competition, it's great, but that's still quite reactive. In today's market, it's better to be proactive. So before you open the door to your business, open your mind to your customers. So when we started our digital agency back in 2004, we opened our mind to our customers, and we knew that our customers, who are small to medium-sized businesses, were getting a very poor quality of service. And we realized that there wasn't a huge emphasis around service in our industry for small to medium-sized business. So our whole drive was to provide a blue chip level of service to small to medium-sized businesses. And that was us proactively responding to what we knew was happening in the minds of our customers. They needed the solutions that were out there, but there was an issue around simple things like delivery, under-promising, over-delivering, price, time constraints, all of very, very basic businessy type stuff they had a problem with. So we decided, because of our corporate backgrounds, to put a huge emphasis around customer service and take some of the lessons that we've learned from how bigger businesses treat their customers, and we applied that model to the small to medium-sized business. And we had some success doing that. So I think in whatever it is that you're doing, if you haven't opened your business, or even if you have opened your business, again, think about what's on your customer's mind. And without having the powers of telepathy, simply ask them, no matter what product or service you're offering, go out to your potential customers or to people who've already bought from you and ask them, what would you like to see different? What have sold your product or service, or you use products or services out there? What would you like to see improved? What are the things that keep you awake at night? And really speak to those pain points when you are developing, launching your business or your product or your service.